John Calvin, on Psalm 19, verse 8, part 2. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. Here a question of no small difficulty arises, for Paul seems entirely to overthrow these commendations of the law which David here recites. How can these things agree together, that the law restores the souls of men, while yet it is a dead and deadly letter? That it rejoices men's heart, and yet, by bringing in the spirit of bondage, strikes them with terror? That it enlightens the eyes, and yet, by casting a veil before our minds, excludes the light which ought to penetrate within? But in the first place, we must remember that David does not speak simply of precepts of the moral law, but comprehends the whole covenant by which God has adopted the descendants of Abraham to be his peculiar people, and therefore, to the moral law, the rule of living well, he joins the free promises of salvation, or rather Christ himself, in whom and upon whom this adoption was founded. But Paul, who had to deal with persons who perverted and abused the law and separated it from the grace and the Spirit of Christ, refers to the ministry of Moses viewed merely by itself and according to the letter. It is certain that if the Spirit of Christ does not quicken the law is not only unprofitable, but also deadly to its disciples. Without Christ, there is in the law nothing but inexorable rigor, which adjudges all mankind to the wrath and curse of God. And farther, without Christ, there remains within us a rebelliousness of the flesh, which kindles in our hearts a hatred of God and of his law, and from this proceeds the distressing bondage and awful terror of which the apostle speaks. These different ways in which the law may be viewed easily show us the manner of reconciling these passages of Paul and David, which seem, at first view, to be at variance. The design of Paul is to show that the law can do for us, taken by itself, that is to say, what it can do for us when, without the promise of grace, it strictly and rigorously exacts from us the duty which we owe God. But David, in praising it as he here does, speaks of the whole doctrine of the law, which includes also the gospel, and therefore, under the law, he comprehends Christ.